Okay, I honestly don't think you're too bad.
Those were up, and they did.
We're smart, and my...
He told me enough.
No, I.
Here's Chuck.
Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I'm here with a brand new movie review. And this movie review is going to be for the third installment of the review series I'm currently doing, the third and final installment of the trilogy I'm currently on, the very first trilogy of this character. It was for a film released in May 2007, and is a mixed received one. Some like it, and some don't. But the point is, this review is going to be for none other than 2007's Spider-Man 3, the third and final Spider-Man film to be directed by Sam Raimi. So anyway, what's the plot of this? Well, Peter Parker had finally managed to piece together the once broken parts of his life, maintaining a balance between his friendship with Mary Jane and his responsibility as Spider-Man. But more challenges arise for our young hero, where Peter's old friend Harry Osborn is set out for revenge against Peter and taken over the mantle of his late father's person as a new goblin. And Peter must also capture Uncle Ben's real killer, Flint Marko, who has been transformed into his toughest foe yet, the Sandman. And all hope seems lost when suddenly Peter's suit turns jet black and greatly amplifies his powers. It also begins to greatly amplify the much darker qualities of Peter's personality that he begins to lose himself to. And Peter has to reach deep inside himself to free the compassionate hero he used to be if he is so to ever conquer the darkness and face not only his greatest enemies but also himself. Yeah, so how was this made? Well, in March 2004, with Spider-Man 2 being released the coming June, Sony announced that Spider-Man 3 is already in development for release in summer 2007. By the release of Spider-Man 2, a release date for Spider-Man 3 has been set for May 2nd, 2007, before production on the sequel had begun. Then the date was changed to May 4th, 2007. In January 2005, Sony Pictures completed a seven-figure deal with screenwriter Alvin Sargent, who had penned Spider-Man 2 to script Spider-Man 3 with an option to script a fourth film. And then immediately after Spider-Man 2's release, Ivan Raimi wrote a treatment over 2 months, with Sam Raimi deciding to use the film to explore Peter learning that he is not a sinless vigilante, and there can also be humanity in those he considers criminals. Harry Osborn was even brought back because Raimi wanted to conclude his storyline, and Raimi felt that Harry would not follow his father's legacy, but instead be somewhere between. Sandman was then introduced as an antagonist, as Raimi found him a visually fascinating character. While Sandman was a petty criminal in the comics, the screenwriters created a background of the character being Uncle Ben's killer to increase Peter's guilt over his death, and challenge his simplistic perception of the event. And overall, Raimi described the film as being about Peter, Mary Jane, Harry, and the Sandman, with Peter's journey being one of forgiveness. And Raimi wanted another villain, and Ben Kingsley was involved in negotiations to play the Vulture before the character was cut out. And Vulture was then considered to be an accomplice of Flint Marko in the original script, but producer Aviard convinced Raimi to include Venom, a character whose perceived lack of humanity had initially been criticized by Sam Raimi. Venom's alter ego Eddie Brock had a minor role in the script, and Art felt the series had relied too much on Raimi's personal favorite Spider-Man villains, not characters that modern fans were actually interested in, so they forced Raimi to include Venom in to please them. And even began, but sadly, Sony's little crap began to appreciate the character, made Sam Raimi appreciate the character himself. The film's version of the character is an amalgamation of Venom's stories, and Eddie Brock Jr., the human part of Venom, serves as a mirror to Peter Parker, where both characters have similar jobs and romantic interests. But Brock's actions as a journalist in Spider-Man 3 represent contemporary themes of paparazzi and tabloid journalism. And the producer even suggested adding rival love interest Gwen Stacy, filling in another girl type that Raimi had already created, with so many additions. Like Sergeant Sue found his script so complex that he considered splitting into 2 films, but he abandoned the idea when he could not create a successful intermediate climax. So, in a way, this was pretty much none other than what I like to call studio interference. when Sam Raimi tried to do his own thing for Spider-Man 3, Sony didn't want that. They made him add Venom. He didn't like Venom. They should have listened. Because this was going to have consequences on this film. But after the film was shot and marketed, Spider-Man premiered on April 16, 2007 in Tokyo, and then released in the United States in both conventional IMAX theaters on May 4, 2007. And worldwide at the box office, it grossed even more than the other two movies combined, with $895 million worldwide, and it was the highest grossing film of the trilogy, and the highest grossing film of 2007, and was the third highest grossing film of 2007 anyways, and was the highest grossing Spider-Man film until it was surpassed by Spider-Man Far From Home in 2019, and then 2021, and then again in 2021 with Spider-Man No Way Home. And as for the reception from critics and fans, well, compared to 1 and 2, it got mixed reviews. Not great. But a fourth installment was still going to be released in May 2011, and then a Venom spin-off film in a fifth and sixth installment, which was Spider-Man 5 and 6, but Sony ended up canceling them. And the Spider-Man film series got rebooted twice, first with Amazing Spider-Man in 2012 by Mark Webb starring Garfield, and then of course that series shortly died, and then a new film series, which was directed by the Iron Boy Jr. series from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, done by John Watts. But of course, Maguire, Church, all came back in Spider-Man No Way Home, which we already know. And a Venom spin-off movie did happen, except it was a different Eddie Brock, and played by Tom Hardy, which released in 2018. Now when it comes to my reaction to this movie, well, let me say, I've never hated this movie. No, I've actually always liked this movie. Because, this was actually the first Spider-Man film I saw in the theaters, and I'm glad I still got to experience, I'm glad I at least still got to experience one of the films of the Raimi trilogy on the big screen during my elementary school years. Even if it ended up being the weakest one. But it was, and also, not only that, it was also the first Marvel film I saw in the theaters. Well, yeah, it does at times tiptoe on the line of being an epic and brilliant work of cinema. Spider-Man 3 can also be a bit of a cast of overkill. There's just way too much going on, and it just seems to keep on coming. And after a somewhat shaky series of opening scenes, with a voiceover narration by Maguire, of course, summing up what's happened, how he's now beloved by everybody, he's finally figured his life out. Seems like off to a great start. The movie does quickly find its balance, but it's not until the symbiote subplots with the black spacesuit gets into full swing that things become just a little too hectic. Director Sam Raimi does pull off an incredible feat by making the never-ending onslaught of subplots balance as well as they do, but the pieces still don't fit to the extent that you'd hope. There's enough plot here for 2 or 3 different movies, with plenty of obstacles for Peter to overcome and an ample amount of baddies for him to fight, but in putting the 4 main plot lines together, revenge against Sandman, Peter's relationship with Harry, the symbiote suit and Venom, and problems with Mary Jane Watson, the whole experience just becomes overwhelming. There's not nearly enough time to absorb the intertwining threads, no matter how hard the filmmakers try to make it work, or how Sony tried to make it work. That's not to say this is a bad movie, far from it. Despite its shortcomings, this could be still one of the most underrated sequels of all time. Of course, it has problems, and a lot of filmmakers think it's one of the worst sequels ever made, which I disagree with. It's kind of hard, especially after you had 2 masterpieces, and then had a mediocre follow-up to Spider-Man 2. But does not make me hate the movie. Yes, there's plot holes and characters that aren't developed or fleshed out, and some scenes are just downright ridiculous. And yes, some of the CGI borders are cartoonish. And the fight between Sandman and Spider-Man is the subway that comes to mind. And yes, there are cliches, like the damsel in distress scenarios with Mary Jane continually finds herself in a 3rd time. But this is a superhero flick, and it's not supposed to be completely realistic. it's just one of those movies you have to turn off your brain and just enjoy. What makes the movie rewatchable for me is the acting and overall theme of forgiveness as it pertains to Peter Parker and Spider-Man. Like Toby Thomas and of course J.K. Simmons and J. Jonah Jameson rise above the honkiness and give great performances. Even James Franco delivers here. In fact, I do. While I get to this part later, I think he probably has the best story arc of all the subplots. And Rosemary Harris does make the best of her limited role as Aunt May once again and gives a high quality performance. And around the time this came out, Toby gave a great final performance as the legendary Spider-Man. Well, yeah, there's a certain scenes involving him that I don't really like, but I don't mind them as much now after we saw some worse certain scenes with Marvel last year. And if anything, I would rather sit through what happens in here than anything that happens last year. There may be a lot going on in this film, but I thought most of it was handled pretty well. The CGI for both Venom and Sandman was top notch, and Sandman is another sympathetic villain, and is played well by Thomas Hayden Church. In fact, I wouldn't have minded if him and Harry were the only villains of the movie. Could have just had them be the villains. When it comes to one of the storylines, the main storyline involving the relationship between Perry and Harry is very well done. And I found the final scene where they finally reconcile to be very touching, finally bringing an end to that story arc of the trilogy. And the action scenes are just as entertaining and exciting as ever, and giving the audience the bang for their buck. And supporting casting does a good job, and we have another strong soundtrack. And much like there's a similar thing to another Sam Raimi franchise, because much like another third entry in a Sam Raimi franchise, Spider-Man 3 is kind of just a energetic cartoon. The J. Jonah Jameson comedy moments have gone from amusement to his character to full-on sitcom ridiculousness involving Ted Raimi, Miss Brandt, JJ's pills, and a vibrating electrified desk. It would work as an SNL skit, but in a movie, it just kind of feels out of the place in a Spider-Man movie. What else can I think of? And of course, once again, because this is a Sam Raimi movie, you have yet another Bruce Campbell cameo. Because, him and Sam Raimi worked together as Ash Williams. And I did love his cameos in Spidey 1 and 2. And now if you feel the Campbell cameos coming in, it's kind of ludicrous it takes out a movie again, but this one just kind of feels, this one, though, made it feel like you were just watching a Peter Sellers movie, where his cameo was actually this server at a restaurant. Whereas the first movie, he was this announcer in the wrestling arena. In the second one, he was a jerk usher. Here he's a waiter at this fancy restaurant Peter tries to take Mary Jane to. But when it comes to the characters getting character development in this movie, I feel like Harry Osborn gets the best character development here, because after his injury and his memory gets erased, he goes on his path to reconcile with Parker, but then sadly regains his memory, and after him and Peter's fight, and Peter realizing his ways from the jazz club scene, Harry pretty much decides to help Peter save MJ, and dies pretty much redeeming himself. But the sad thing is, I just really don't like that Spider-Man No Way Home made this whole scene a joke. Where the line is, I did have a best friend. He died in my arms after he tried to kill me. It kind of makes it look like he still died evil. Spider-Man No Way Home should have let Raimi's Peter explain that how his death went. He tried to kill me he thought I was responsible for his father's death, so he tried to kill me. But eventually he realized his ways, and then he died doing the right thing. That's how it should have went in No Way Home. Raimi's Parker could have explained that Harry died redeeming himself, instead of trying to make the line actually goofy and funny. So, but hey, While this film is now so jokey, surface and no texture, you wonder how the same people could be behind 2 and 3. Like, Alvin Sargent does get a right credit, but most of this trust had come from Sam and Ivy Raimi, and there's little to connect the script of 2 to that of 3 here. You're on Bright. And when it comes to Bryce Dallas Howard's Gwen Stacy, she's decent. She does the best she can do to give Gwen some character despite having zero to work with and not really doing much to the story, just to kind of make a rival. She's not really a character though. She's just a device to add tension to the Peter Mary Jane or Peter Brock storylines. But she comes out of it well and does it as a testament of abilities. Our one scene of her does involve some bad acting, we'll also get to in a bit. The relationship between Mary Jane and Peter Parker is pretty key to the film as it drives much of Peter's personal decisions and problems. It's done quite well, aside from Mary Jane usually saying, but Peter wants to ask her to marry him. It doesn't quite work out though. And Aunt May does have some great moments in here where she really shines. And everyone is back and more, and once again, J. Jonah Jameson is still as hilarious as he is in the first 2 films. Those despite the whole desk scene, but the rest of the movie is still pretty hilarious, and even the great theme is used to great effect from beginning to ending. Something that was just really missing from the last X-Men film. Not to the positive side, not to the other positive side stuff, first you have the stupendous battles. Let me tell you, there's some big ones. They're very well staged and brought to being. The final battle even did a great job bringing everything together. The special effects are even dazzling, especially on Sandman. The first appearance of this pure film magic, and we see the cells change at Marco's body, their construction after being turned into sand particles. And the most outstanding thing about this film was definitely the special effects. The fight scenes are even brilliantly realized, and Sam Raimi certainly knows how to put a thrilling compilation together, and Sandman provides Spider-Man 3 with its best visuals, as the Terminator 2 style villain switches between sand and flesh and style, and the director constantly makes good use of this setup. The visuals are obviously important in a film like this, and the film contains many a memorable scene. The best of these sequences comes in the form of the creation of the villains. And even it is said to be the best way they come about is a little convenient, when Sandman stumbles upon a nuclear experiment with sand. It's kind of not too difficult to believe since the film takes place in a world where a human spider hybrid fights criminals in New York City, then a dude could probably survive falling into a little sand machine and not die. And as it is, it runs well over 2 hours and stays on a pretty smooth course throughout. And for such a long film, except for the little whenever Spidey deals with romantic complications, it's a pretty fast moving story that has some eye-filling special effects whenever things get too dull in the storytelling department here. And I do like what they do with Sandman here. Some may be a little split on it, but I like Sandman gets a bit of a sympathetic backstory. He was not really this villain guy. He was kind of forced to resort to crime just so he could get the money to save his daughter's life. Here. And of course, and that night Ben Parker died, he just wanted a car. And he did kind of realize his crime ways. And decided to follow Ben Parker's advice to just not do the heist, and he put it down, but unfortunately that mugger that Peter let get away with the money in the first film had finally just arrived, and he accidentally caused Flint to fire the gun at Ben Parker, and he's pretty much he's long regretted it his whole life. And he never meant to cause Ben Parker's death. So I really like with the character. And I also do like Harry Osborn's a new Goblin, and that he's not just a villain, he's first loses his memory, then slowly regains it over time, and it's and his subplot is kind of like how his subplot kind of is about him and Peter trying to reconcile after Norman Osborn's death here, and trying to learn to let go of the past. Here, I think they really did Harry Osborn perfectly well. Here. And it ends with him pretty much dying, redeeming himself, saving Peter's life, helping him in the final battle. It's a pretty perfect role. Pretty perfect role for the character, and a pretty perfect send-off, and a good end to Harry Osborn's little story arc in this trilogy. This film really does wrap up a lot of story arcs. It kind of wraps up Peter's guilt over Ben Parker. It wraps up his attempted romance with Mary Jane Watson. And of course, it wraps up his conflict with Harry Osborn and resolves it. So, this film did somewhat do a decent job ending off Tobey Maguire's story arc, which was one thing, so maybe it's a good thing we didn't. Maybe it's kind of a good thing we didn't get a fourth film after all, because I feel like this kind of. I mean, we did get No Way Home, but while I still wouldn't mind seeing a fourth one, this did pretty decent wrapping up all of Peter's story arcs. I mean, wrapping up the Ben Parker story arc here. However, is this movie one of the best super films ever made? Well, no. It's definitely the weakest of the Raimi trilogy for sure. And there's a lot of reasons as parts. First of all, do I have to state the obvious? Topher Grace as Eddie Brock in Venom. Fuck. He is just the worst part of this movie. He has no reason to be in this movie for all. And this was all because of stupid Sony wanting Venom in this movie. Raimi didn't want Venom, but Sony made him Adam. And this is how he got. Like, Eddie Brock, like, this guy is just unlikable, annoying, and just a big baby. Eddie, like, that's not Eddie Brock. Eddie Brock's not this arrogant. And Eddie Brock's way more likable in the comics, and has likable moments. Yeah, he's enemies with Peter Parker, but Eddie Brock actually has some likable moments in the comics. He's not this big of a prick. And Venom's dialogue is just wrong. And his design is horrible. Like, his dialogue should have been, not, I want to kill a spider, you want to kill a spider. It should have said, we want to kill a spider, you want to kill a spider. And it should have had a Venom voice. A gravelly Venom voice like Tom Hardy's Venom has. And his reasons for revenge are pathetic. Because Peter Parker had every right to get him fired for pretty much committing fraud. And almost killing the Daily Bugle's reputation. Which Brock deserved and did all to himself. So, he has pathetic excuses to try to kill Peter Parker. Oh yeah, and because Peter Parker stole Gwen Stacy from him. Even though Gwen Stacy never liked him. Or clearly never wanted to be his girlfriend. Honestly, I don't think anybody in this movie likes him. Like his scene with Miss Brown, he's literally just pretty much telling Eddie, she's pretty much telling Eddie to fuck off when he tries to go meet J. Jonah Jameson, so I don't think any character even likes this movie and likes this character at all in this movie. Raimi did not even want to put Venom in this movie because he hated Venom. But then again, of course, Sony made him. Like, they could have just waited and just saved Venom for the fourth movie, because we already had Sam and a New Goblin. That was plenty of villains. You could, heck, if you wanted to have Harry die, redeem himself, you could have still did that. You could have still had Harry die, redeeming himself, saving Peter in the film even without Venom. You still could have did that. And second of all, Bully Maguire scenes. Especially the cringe dances he does, like da 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 da. And his like stupid little dance on the streets. Even as he's just walking around the street, his dance in the jazz club, and his look and design. And just some of the acting from others is just not that great. Like the scene where Spider-Man saves Gwen, her dad sees her hanging off for dear life, and all George Stacy says is, "What's she doing up there?" Like, no, actually it sounds like, "What's she doing up there?" Like, he just sounds bored. He doesn't even sound remotely concerned for his daughter's safety. And even How It Should Have Ended made fun of this scene, like with that Stan Lee cameo at How It Should Have Ended, where the version of Stanley comes in and says, "She's trying not to fall to her death, you idiot. Have some courtesy." Yeah. Thank you, parody Stan Lee. He deserves that. Because, like, he should be a little more concerned. That's his daughter up there. Not just sound bored, ready to sleep, not caring if his daughter dies. He doesn't even sound too relieved when he sees his daughter's life is saved. Like, yeah. And also, don't even get me started on the infamous Butler scene. I don't know why. I don't know why with the extended edition, where the extended edition removed the Butler scene. Why couldn't it be how it went in the extended version, where Harry just chooses himself to help Peter anyway? Not because the Butler finally revealed the truth that Norman got himself killed. If he knew that, why would you wait 3 damn movies to reveal the truth? And even how it should have ended also made fun of that, where Harry Osborn quickly fired his ass. He should have fired his ass in the movie too. For waiting 3 damn movies and waiting till his face got disfigured to finally do so. Butler's an idiot. And once again, I think they make Mary Jane a little more unlikable here. Specifically, this scene where like Spider-Man ends up kissing Gwen Stacy the same way he kissed her in front of the crowd, even though the crowd was egging him to do it, and then she gets all mad over it. And the only thing she really cares about at the time is her stupid bad review and getting kicked out of Broadway. But like the next scenes show her literally working at a jazz club singing. So she still got some kind of fame and talent. I mean, so why should it matter? Because like Peter then even tries hard to take her to this perfect place, but she's still all mad over the kiss and the stupid bad review and her stupid Broadway career being ruined. And the tree ruins the dates. I'm sorry guys, but I have to be honest, I've never liked this version of Mary Jane Watson. Like, where is it? Okay, you want an actually likable version of Mary Jane Watson? This game is, to me, pretty much has my favorite version of Mary Jane Watson. I don't know why the Mary Jane Watson in here could have been portrayed. I don't know how this version of Mary Jane Watson couldn't have been the one we got in this trilogy. Like, because the one in the game, guys, she was not a damsel in distress. You could tell in the game she actually really loved and cared about Peter Parker and Spider-Man. You could tell the bond, you could literally see the bond between them in the game. Here, and heck, she actually even had some useful levels. Why couldn't we have that with this? I kind of blame Zony for this, guys. Okay? Just so you know, guys, but just never liked this version of Mary Jane. However, these honestly don't ruin the movie for me, and I still enjoy Spider-Man 3 to some degree. In the end, I think Spider-Man 3 is an underrated sequel that I feel like deserves more attention than it gets, but since it is the weakest, maybe you should still stream this one for your own benefit. Anyways, that's it for my review of Spider-Man 3. You're wondering how I'm going to rank Spider-Man 3? Here's how I'm going to rank this movie. So overall, if you're interested in seeing Raimi's Parker on his third and at the time final outing, then I highly recommend streaming this one online since it is weaker than 1 or 2. And if you're wondering how I'm going to rank Spider-Man 3, I'm going to give Spider-Man 3 a 7 out of 10. There we go. That wraps up my review for Spider-Man 3. So you're wondering, what's the next review going to be? Well, the next review is actually going to be for another revival of the Underrated Gems episode. And this episode is going to be the first episode since I did Click last summer. And this Underrated Gem is going to be about a live-action film about a mouse who got adopted by a human family. Yeah, that film is next. The next review. But until then, guys, that'll be it for this review. Thank you all for watching. If you like this, want to see more, and don't forget to like, subscribe to Don G. Corleone.